Hi, how are you guys? So let me start with, when Lisa Ann asked me to do this TED Talk, I could not believe that yes was coming out of my mouth because, not because I don't think Women in Clean Tech and Sustainability is an incredible organization, or not because I don't love Lisa Ann, but because I've been avoiding this moment my entire life. So public speaking is probably one of my most feared events. Which is sort of funny because when you hear my story, you'll think that that's silly. I'm in the business of change. As Lisa Ann said, my firm Enertech focuses on all the change and transformation that's going on in the industry, both in energy and environmental markets. But obviously I wasn't always in this industry. And I actually spent most of my career in commercial real estate, which seems really odd. And in 2006, just before the crash, I decided to move my family from California to Seattle and found myself in my own career transition. I had to totally reinvent myself, and I have to say I couldn't have imagined the path that it would have led me on. So I certainly want to tell you that story. There's sort of 5 things that I really want to talk about today, and the first one I just did talk about, which is change is super scary. It's really, really scary. The second one is perception is not always our reality. So, we always think about why do people avoid transition or new jobs or change, and most people would say, well, it's because I don't have the right education, or I don't have the right experience, or the right skills, or I have small kids at home, or I don't, work-life balance, whatever it is. But really it's not. It's just fear. I mean, that's really the only reason that we don't ever change. So the funny thing is women, I think, are probably the most well-equipped beings on earth to accommodate change and transition. I mean, just think about 3 major issues: puberty, pregnancy, and menopause. I mean, seriously, if we can get through that, I think we can get through just about anything. No question about it. So my goal today is to actually illustrate that extraordinary transition is possible even when we actually are ill-equipped or undereducated or underfinanced. So the third point is opportunities are totally useless unless we take action. So, the most common question that I'm asked is, how did I make the transition from selling commercial real estate into clean tech recruiting? It's a huge stretch. And some might say, well, maybe luck. She was probably in the right place at the right time. And maybe I'd have to say that might be a little bit true. But again, luck without action doesn't create an opportunity. So my view is life is sort of made up of circumstances. Some are lucky circumstances, some are unlucky circumstances. It's really what we do with that situation that puts us on the path that we end up on. So there were lots of decisions on my journey to potentially launch Enertech Search Partners. Lots of obstacles. Some were perceived, some were actually real. But the biggest decision was to make a choice to actually totally change careers, to go from commercial real estate into recruiting, something I had literally no practical experience in. And as I thought about it, there were actually an extraordinary number of similarities. The skills I'd learned to connect buyers and sellers were really not that different from what I needed to connect candidates and clients. The transactions were really very similar. These were financial transactions that were basically had underlying emotional decisions. And so once I realized that, I took the leap and jumped into the boat, worked for a very large firm. Luckily, within the first few months, I realized I was really good at the job. But that still doesn't create the opportunity, right? I could be great at a job and work at a big company and fine. The second thing I figured out pretty quickly is there was a massive opportunity in an underserved market for emerging clean tech companies. My firm represented huge oil and gas firms, big energy companies, and I saw all these young emerging companies starting to pop up, but they couldn't afford what we would charge. And they didn't want to chase that business. And so I made the decision, that's sort of the second big decision I made, which was I was going to start my own firm. And I knew that within about 6 months. the challenge was timing, right? That's always the key to decisions, is when do you make them? And so my timing wasn't perfect. It was January of 2009. And so people thought I was crazy. My husband included thought I was really crazy. But I learned two really, really important things from commercial real estate. One was whether a market is expanding or contracting, there are voids to fill and there's a way to earn a living. And because I lived through real estate through a couple of cycles. And the second thing is the best time to build a brand is in a down market. And so those two things are what, really put me on the path that I was on. I took the leap, of course. Now, I'm also not a very patient person, which is why I chose 2009. The fourth thing that I would say that's important is transparency is critical. So what you need to understand is not only did I only have 2 years of recruiting experience at all, I knew nothing about the smart grid or energy efficiency markets, except that it was a market that wasn't being served. I'm not an engineer. I don't have an MBA. I don't even actually have a college degree. I was entering an industry that was, certainly at that time, dominated by men. Some might think these are all not perceived obstacles, but actual obstacles. But I use them as an advantage. I mean, I really took the position of my inexperience and was transparent and asked questions. And I didn't take the sort of fake it until you make it strategy. Some people would have used that. I recognized that the market was so early. There's certainly not a lot of other specialized recruiters in the space. The business models were still being developed. And what I realized is, although my clients may know more about certain technologies than I did, I absolutely had at least 2 years of experience on them in terms of recruiting. So it really wasn't as big a challenge as you might have thought. And I used it as an opportunity to partner with my clients and figure out, how do we solve these problems? Who do we attract? There really wasn't a workforce at that time. People weren't already experienced in the space. So I was really lucky in that way. The third decision that I had to make, so I started the business and it was successful. I was making a really good living, but it was just really me, and there's only so much you can do with just you. And so I had to figure out, how did I grow the business? The obvious choice would have been to attract really experienced recruiters. At this point, we were 2 years into the market, maybe people that had experience in the space. That would have been a good strategy, except I had no money. I had built this business on chewing gum and duct tape and a couple of nearly maxed out credit cards in the height of the recession. And so I was making plenty of money for myself, but I didn't want to leverage the business. I had no debt on it. And so I started to just talk to the women around me about, how do I solve this problem? Gosh, I'm in way over my head. I don't know what to do. I don't know the answer here. And the scarier I made it sound, and the more I talked about the huge challenge that I had, the more that people wanted to be a part of it. What I realized is, women want to solve problems. They don't want to judge the circumstance. They just want to fix it. And amazingly, over the last 6 years, I've been able to bring 6 amazing women into this business, none of whom had any recruiting experience, and certainly none that had any energy experience. And we've taken the business from $0 to nearly $1 million in revenue with 0 debt and 0 outside investment. And I think, so the final thing is, opportunities simply don't come in our timing. And so life is just really a set of circumstances, which I call opportunities, that you have to be able to take advantage of. And women pass up opportunities all the time, and actually they don't even acknowledge that the opportunities are in front of them because they are either afraid or unprepared, or the reality is they perceive they are. But believe me, if I could have gotten here from that path, all of you with fantastic educations could certainly do way more exciting things even than I've been able to accomplish. So thank you.